Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my wife is cheating on me with her gaming friend. I, 26 male, and my wife, female 25, have been married for just under 2 years. We've been together for over 5 years, and we have a daughter together who's turning 1 next month. I started to see a change in our relationship about a month after our daughter was born when I went back to work. She became increasingly distant with me and more withdrawn. Any sorts of affection stopped, and I just felt like I was worthless to her. At the same time, she was spending an increasing amount of time on her maternity leave gaming with a group of online friends that she's known for a few years, most of which are male. I've never had a problem with this, as I know the people in this group, but I felt this group of friends was being put first before me. And at the same time, there was one person in particular from the group that she was talking to a lot of the time, which I felt uncomfortable about. When I confronted her the first time about how I felt, she had admitted she lost feelings for me after our daughter was born, but that she wanted to make things work and that there was nothing going on with anyone from this group and that I should trust her. However, fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I felt like things had not been improving. It was at this point that I checked her messages and found that she was having an emotional affair with someone from the group. I confronted her about this and she admitted to it. She said that she had lost feelings for me, as she said before, and then she had gained feelings for this other person and that she let it get out of control. She said she wants to fix our relationship as she's worried that she will lose me and everything that we worked for, and that she was so sorry for doing this to me. I'm not convinced that she's telling me the truth, but I'm willing to try and rebuild our relationship for the sake of our daughter and the fact that I do still love her. However, I've told her that the only way I'm going to be able to rebuild any form of trust is if she stops all contact with this group of friends indefinitely and to not speak to them again. She thinks I'm not being fair about this. So tell me, am I the jerk for asking her to do this for me? She doesn't want to cut contact with the person she admits she got romantic feelings for? Were she sincere about wanting to fix and rebuild your relationship, that's a natural first step that she should take on her own accord. You should not even need to ask her for it. Not the jerk. She's staying with you because you are security. Don't let her use you like that. Not the jerk. She asked what it would take and you answered. Plus, wanting to continue contact means that she's putting herself in a position where she knows there is potential to revert to the affair, which means she is doing something that is putting the recovery of your relationship at risk, rather than doing everything possible to make it successful again. And that's even if she wants to stop the affair at all, which is an open question. Not the jerk, but okay. To play the devil's advocate, cheating is the worst thing in a relationship in my humble opinion. But N have to say there are details missing here. Yeah, N have to say that you can shut up. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Never stay with someone who's cheating on you. Would I be the jerk for losing every wrestling match I'm forced to attend on purpose? I'm 15, male. School has recently restarted all of the sports programs after almost a year of no or limited activity. Before that, I was part of the swim team, one of the smaller groups at our school. I love swimming, and it really sucked that we couldn't go for such a long time. With the restart, the school also made a new system. Every student writes down 3 different after-school activities in order of interest. So first choice is your favorite, second is your second favorite, and so on. The teachers in charge of the groups then pick the students. First pick is students who already belong to the groups before lockdown. Second pick is then random, and third pick is if there are still places left open in the group. Since I was part of the swim team before and put it down as my first choice, I would basically be guaranteed to get in. But now the results are out and I was placed in wrestling. I never even put that on my list at all, so I went to the teacher and asked what's going on. Turns out the teacher in charge of wrestling specifically requested me for whatever reason. Turns out my dad knows the wrestling teacher quite well and asked for me to be placed on the team. I know my dad hates that I prefer swimming. He always says it's not a real sport and that I should do some sport that actually gives me muscles. He constantly tells me I'm too skinny for a guy and has made several attempts to make me go to the gym to work out. I asked the teachers if I can still switch teams, but they say no. I also cannot just avoid the wrestling club because after-school activities are mandatory. So last night I had a huge fight with my dad. I called him a jerk for forcing me to go to wrestling and that I'll just forfeit every single match I have to attend. He said that if I do that, he'll take away all my electronics and I will only be allowed to leave the house for school and nothing else. My mom says I should have the right to choose whatever sport I want, but now that I'm on the wrestling team, I should still do my best. Also, to not call my dad names. But I don't want to participate in something I have zero interest in. I was forced into it. Also, I was really looking forward to swimming again and meeting my teammates. Edit. Next week, I will talk to more teachers, guidance teacher, and also write to the principal. Guess I'll also try to talk to my mom again and maybe convince her. Worst case, I'll just go through with it and put in zero effort if no one listens to me. Edit 2. I talked to my mom again without my dad nearby. She still thinks I should give wrestling a try, but if I really want to change, she will support me. So next week, I'll go and talk first to my swim coach and the wrestling coach and hopefully get it resolved. Otherwise, I'll go further to the principal. I can post an update next week and tell you guys how things worked out. Some of you suggested I go to the newspaper or something, but I really don't feel comfortable blowing things up like that. Slandering the school would backfire 100%. I also got a few questions about the rule of afternoon activities being mandatory. So we have to do activities for 2 years total, but we're free to choose when we do them during high school. We can choose between a lot of club activities offered by the school, not just sports, but all kinds of activities. Music, art, reading, gardening, or even game design. School club activities are always free, and if you require financial assistance for like an instrument or something, I think you can get financial aid, but I don't really know the details. Additionally, if we attend a club or regular activity outside of school, we can also get credits for that. Just need to work it out with the teachers. We also don't get grades or anything. It's just noted on our final report. I also don't really know what happens if you don't complete them. Update. First things first, I'm back on the swim team for now. Today was really weird and awkward. First opportunity, I went to talk with my swim coach and explained the whole situation and that I'm not willing to stay on the wrestling team. He was pretty mad at my dad as well as the wrestling coach, so he took me to the secretary, explained the whole thing, and asked her to change the list. She was in turn quite mad because apparently the whole system is a big mess. I'm not even remotely the only student who was misplaced. So then the secretary called in my homeroom teacher. There was a lot of accusation. I was just standing there feeling awkward. Really weird to see 3 adults being mad at each other. In the end, I was basically told by all 3 to just ignore the whole thing and that I can just join the swim team if I want to. I figured that was it until the end of the school day. Then the wrestling coach had me come to his office. He gave me a long talk about how disappointed he is, how he had high hopes for me, blah blah blah. I told him I really don't care and that he was a jerk for just ignoring what I wanted to do. To sum up, wrestling coach is mad at me, homeroom teacher is mad at me for complaining, swim coach mad at the school, and my dad is probably gonna freak out when he hears that I won't wrestle. Oh well. Update. Mom told dad about the switch as he came home from work. He has so far completely ignored me, not a single word. Actually, a nice outcome, I guess. Update. Last night, I had a talk with my dad and my mom. It was awkward. Dad apologized for the wrestling thing, but also said he wants me to grow up strong so that I can defend myself. He says swimming won't help me when I get in trouble. I was really confused about that because I never have been bullied or gotten in trouble or anything like that. Mom later told me that my dad used to get bullied a lot in high school, so he started working out in college and that helped him a lot. I guess he wanted me to do the same. It's really weird at home at the moment, but I guess he is not a complete jerk. Still kind of, but I don't know. Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband over bread? Whenever I buy something out of the ordinary with a specific dinner purpose in mind, my husband manages to find it and eat it. I'm sure if I were planning to bake something and bought yeast, I would come home to find him completely distended and surrounded in empty yeast packets. I usually stick to the same grocery list every week, and I feel like if I buy something out of the ordinary that is clearly an ingredient for a larger meal, he could at least ask before devouring it. Last night, I bought 2 baguettes, which I have only ever purchased to make French bread pizza for him and our kids. I bought these at 11 p.m., and they were not even here 12 hours when I saw them on the counter, with the first 6 inches ripped off of each loaf, scanned the house, and saw my husband chewing. If it had been 1 loaf, okay. If he had used a knife, maybe. But the fact that he didn't ask if they were going to be for dinner and then ripped off the top of them, this was just unforgivable. He insists I should tell him when I buy things if they are for a specific purpose. I say that I'm already taking on the burden of grocery shopping and cooking, and the least that he can do is ask. Am I the jerk here? Edit. 1. We have 2 snack cabinets that he's free to snack from, not to mention whatever's in the fridge. 2. The bread was in a cabinet that is mostly ingredients. 3. There was regular sandwich bread for the taking that was unharmed. 4. For those who have stated that this is raccoon-like behavior, It really does feel like I'm running a wildlife rehab operation, but the only patient is a 37-year-old software programmer. 5. To the dude who said that my husband is going to leave me for another woman who will give him peace, tell me you're still bitter about how things ended with Sheila without telling me you're still bitter about how things ended with Sheila. Update. I shared this with my husband and he accepts his jerk status and apologized. We're going to work on communicating better and he's going to work on his weaponized incompetence. He wants you to know he occasionally cooks rice and beans and lately has been making us late-night quesadillas when the kids are asleep. But most of all, I was just hungry. My husband. He was hungry, all right. Not the jerk. OP shouldn't have to label every food item that comes into the house, especially since this is a pattern. The husband should learn to ask first. It's not hard to say, hey, are you saving these baguettes for something? Because if you're not, I want to tear 6 inches off each one of them and leave the mangled remains on the counter. It's like he's marking his territory. You're not the jerk. May I suggest that whenever he does this, you simply refuse to cook unless he goes to the store and replaces what he ate? Also, hang a sign on the kitchen. All food in the kitchen is for a specific purpose. Ask before mindlessly devouring. He won't stop until he realizes the problems his actions are causing you. You have to make this his problem. Am I the jerk for refusing to take part in sibling moments during my dad's wedding? Title sounds weird, I'll explain. So my dad is engaged to a woman, Ruth. Ruth has an almost 5-year-old daughter, Lacey. Their wedding is planned for January, and ever since Ruth and Lacey moved in with us, Dad and I, Lacey and I have been forced to share a room because it's a 2-bedroom house. Lacey has become obsessed with me. She thinks I'm the coolest person, and she always wants to be around me. So Ruth came up with this idea of having sibling moments during the wedding where we embrace each other as true sisters for the first time. She mentioned it to Lacey before either her or my dad mentioned it to me, so Lacey was really excited and happy. But I'm not comfortable with the idea. I don't want to hold her during a family unity ceremony. I don't want to do a special sister dance with her where the spotlight is on us, and I don't want to make promises that I'm not sure I would keep. The promises were already printed out by Ruth, and she showed me what I would need to say. It's basically, I will always answer her calls, always call her my sister from this day forward, that I will be there for her and chase away the bullies and show her how to do things. It's not that I'm opposed to us being closer at all, but I won't be going out of my way to come home from college just to be there with Lacey. I might not even stay at my dad's when I do because I don't want to share a room with Lacey. I already hate doing it now. I expressed that I didn't want to do these things during the wedding, and Ruth was furious. My dad was like, it would be so sweet and would be super cute to look back on when watching the wedding videos. Ruth was saying how excited Lacey now is and how I would crush her heart and soul and stomp on them if I refused to do it. She even claimed Lacey was saying how excited she was to have me as a sister forever and that she wants me to be her protector. Not sure I buy a 4-year-old saying that, but whatever. Ever since I said I didn't want to do those things, I've been under a lot of pressure to give in, and Ruth has been accusing me of rejecting Lacey and refusing to have anything to do with her. That's not what this is, but I don't love Lacey right now, and I don't know that I will be playing the big sister role. It might be more like cousins, because honestly, I'll be moving out soon as I'm 18 to get a little more space, but this whole thing is starting to get to me. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but Ruth is a major one. 1. Lacey should not have been told about this unless OP had agreed to it. 2. Forcing a relationship is a bad idea. 3. Making a public spectacle of a forced relationship is an even worse idea. And 4. Ruth needs to stop weaponizing Lacey to try to convince OP to go along with it. Ruth needs to back off and let any relationship develop naturally. Lacey is acting age appropriate and being a nuisance to OP. Hopefully she'll grow out of that. But OP should not be forced to undertake these wedding activities. It's not OP's wedding, so this arrangement wasn't OP's choice, and Ruth and Dad should stop acting as if this is a major union by OP and Lacey. It's not. It's Ruth and Dad's union. Lacey and OP are just affected by it, but they don't have a say in it. Am I the jerk for telling my family my daughter's name is none of their business? I, 25 female, had my first baby with my husband, who's 25 male. Our daughter is named Calla to honor my grandma. She loved Calla lilies and always thought Calla would make a pretty name. My husband and I wholeheartedly agree with that, and the name seemed perfect for our daughter. The choice to name her Calla instead of Elizabeth, my grandma's actual name, was a controversial one among my family. You see, there are pretty much only 3 or 4 names for each gender circulating within my family. Everyone is named after everyone and always has the exact same first name and usually last. It's a real pain and not something my husband or I wanted to keep up with. My grandma even hated it. My grandpa was a very domineering man and he chose to name their kids names that already existed in his family. She had zero say and she hated it. I remember complaining to her one day that I hated sharing my name with 4 other family members I saw all the time. She told me every person deserves their own name, and she never liked how our family had to all have the same names. This is when I also learned how hard my grandpa was on her and how he basically treated her horribly and made decisions for her when they were married, which was pretty much pressured by both their families. She was the one who told me about honor names being more special if you don't use the actual name, but something about the person or what they loved. So maybe a virtue name based on a virtue for the loved one or their favorite flower or plant, place they loved, or their birth month or stone. We lost her 2 years ago and it was awful. My husband adored her too, and she adopted him as a grandkid when we were kids. He and I were best friends before we became boyfriend-girlfriend. For us both, it made sense to honor her, and doing it how we felt was better, but also how she felt was better. My family have really pushed the idea that we were wrong to name her something weird that is not Elizabeth, and they say I should not say we honored Grandma. I never asked for their opinions, but they gave them and would not stop giving them and insulting the choice we made. So I snapped and told them my daughter's name is none of their business, so they should keep their unwanted opinions to themselves. They told me there was no need to be rude, and I should be willing to hear honest feedback from people who love us. They claim naming is very much a family business in my family, and I should also know and respect that. Am I the jerk? So not the jerk. Kala is a beautiful name, and you should be able to honor the grandmother you loved any way you want to. She's your daughter, not your family's, and she's the one who has to live with the name, so good on you for not letting them push this bizarre naming is a family business narrative on you. Not the jerk. It's a beautiful name, and the background is beautiful too. It sounds like your grandma would be so happy with this honor. You're the jerk. Let's be honest, the name is weird. I would never name my baby something like that, and your family has the right to check you on it. Kala would be okay for a cat or a dog, but not a baby. Stop normalizing goofy names for kids. So you're claiming I defrauded the company by booking an extra 3 minutes? No problem. I worked for a water company for 25 years and was one of their most productive repair crews. That is, until the new manager, let's call him Mr. Jerk, started. We had a monthly rotation where you're on call for 1 week in 4 for emergency repairs out of hours. On the day in question, I started work at 7:30 a.m. on a Friday and finished work at 3:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, so a pretty long shift. I get to work Tuesday morning and get called into the office by Mr. Jerk, and I'm informed that according to my vehicle tracker, I'd left the yard at 3:12 a.m. and not 3:15 a.m., which is an attempt to defraud the company. As you can imagine, I was absolutely fuming at this level of BS. I told him that at the time I was covered in mud and sweat and just wanted to get home after completing a monster shift for the company, and he was genuinely making a crap storm over 3 minutes. He said he was making me aware that I could be fired for it. Cue malicious compliance. I said that if we're going to be this petty, you can take me off the emergency contact list for extra coverage, and I won't be starting 20 minutes early each day either. I'll now be clocking in at exactly 7:30 a.m., and I shall be heading out at exactly 5:30 p.m. No deviation whatsoever. And you can explain to your bosses why productivity is down and you're struggling to get coverage for emergencies. We'll then see how important your 3 minutes are when they're costing the company money. Little did I realize at the time, but the guy's job was bonus related and linked to our productivity, which tanked after that because all the other gangs followed my lead, except the brown nose gangs obviously. 3 weeks go by with an absolute crap show and customer service complaints about their work not being carried out in a timely manner. My productivity dropped from 7 jobs per day down to 4. And Mr. Jerk gets called by his bosses to try and explain what's going on. He tried to spin some BS story that I'd turned all the guys against him for no reason and that this was the result. Little did he know that I'd actually trained his boss when he first started with the company 15 years before and wanted to come out and find out what we do and experience how hard the job is. He surprised me by working a full month on the repair crews before going back to the office. Anyhow, the boss calls me in to find out what's really going on, so I explained how he had used the tracker to monitor what time I'd left the yard and that I had guesstimated my finish time and overestimated by 3 minutes because I was absolutely exhausted after working a long shift. Conclusion: manager was let go for misuse of the tracking system, as it's only supposed to be for emergencies and not for monitoring, and we had our on-call system reviewed to cut the hours we were having to work. When will new managers learn to not mess with veteran employees? Probably never. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor I'm not taking or picking up her son from school anymore? I, 43 female, am close friends with my neighbor, 42 female, and we both have kids that attend the same high school. We don't live far from the school, but it's not really walking distance. My neighbor has work early in the morning, and there's no one home when her son has to go to school, so I've always let him ride with me and my son. As for picking him up, my son has football practice directly after school, so I don't need to pick him up. However, my neighbor's son doesn't have any practices, so I find myself going to just pick him up often. His dad can pick him up, but his dad also works a lot and goes on business trips almost every other week, so again, it's mostly just me. Earlier this week, my neighbor was off work and I asked her if she minded taking my son to school with hers since I had a work call that morning and I had to take it. She said no, which kind of had me taken aback since I figured she'd just do it. I asked her why, and she told me, "You're home, you can take him." I was honestly just speechless, and so I took my son that day and she took hers. I called her later that day and told her I thought it was pretty rude that she wouldn't take my son when I take hers every single day. She told me that her son doesn't have any other option while mine does. I told her that she should show some appreciation for me because if it weren't for me, her son would be walking 3 miles to and from school every day. She still kept repeating the same thing, that I'm home so I can take my son, and I told her if that's how she feels, I'm not taking her son anymore. She screamed at me, but I just hung up. I stuck to my words, and yesterday I didn't take him to school, so he had to walk. He ended up being late, and my neighbor texted me an angry message about how I'm ruining her son's attendance. My husband noticed the text and asked me what it was about. I told him what happened, and he told me that although our neighbor was being a pain, I shouldn't just refuse to take her son because it's not his fault and it's too far to be walking. Now I don't know if I'm wrong or what to do. I feel like it's reasonable to not want to take him anymore since my neighbor doesn't value what I've done for him. But I also see my husband's point of view that it isn't her son's fault, and 3 miles is a pretty long distance to walk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It really sucks for the kid, but that's a result of his parents' actions, not yours. I might change my mind if the kid was really apologetic about how his mom acted. Did he ever express his thanks for all that you've done for him in regards to the rides? If so, maybe you should keep taking him, as he's not aping his parents' behavior. OP. He's a good kid. He always says thank you after we arrive to the school and I drop him off, so it does make me feel a little more guilty. He hasn't said anything about the recent event, but I haven't seen him since it happened, so I don't know if he would or not. You're not the jerk, but honestly, if I liked the kid, I'd still drive him in the morning, but not pick him up anymore, and I'd tell him why. Am I the jerk for leaving my sick husband to spend time with friends? Context: I'm 31 with 2 sons, a full-time 12-hour shift worker, and I'm in a full-time doctorate program. My husband is therefore the primary caregiver many nights when I'm working. We have full-time daycare during the day, and he works from home. The other night, we had a date night planned. We were going to go out to dinner, then had plans to go to a bonfire with friends. We got a sitter, I got all done up. Dinner started great, but hit a sour note when my husband made the comment that he was disappointed we weren't doing something more exciting. I took it to heart because I was excited for the night we had planned, so I was moody and quiet. We were still in a tiff heading back home to change for the bonfire. When it came time to meet our friends, they said they were finishing dinner and having a drink or two at a nearby restaurant and asked us to join. My husband said he'd rather take the time to take a nap, then he'd meet us for the bonfire after. I did say I'd prefer he come with, but he declined. So I went, had one drink, then came back to get him for the bonfire. He had texted while I was out and said that he had thrown up, but still planned to go with me to the bonfire. I got back to pick him up and asked if he still felt up to going to the bonfire, and he said no. I asked if he wanted me to pick up the kids from the sitter early and get them to bed so he didn't have to while I was out with our friends. His response was, "I don't care. I don't really want to go get them." So I did go pick them up and brought them back and got them to bed. He was still distant, so I left to follow through with the original plans. I was out for 2.5 hours and got home before midnight. I took care of the kids for him to attend a golf tournament with his 2 guy friends for 9 hours the following day. When he got back from golfing, he expressed frustration that I had left him that night, stating that he'd never leave me when I was sick and that the point of the night wasn't to go see friends, it was to spend time together. I explained that I work non-stop, and to me, getting out of the house, out of routine, and having time to laugh and joke with friends was important. I explained that I would have rather spent the time with him, but he never, at the time, indicated that he wanted the time together. He wasn't feeling great and said at the time that he just wanted to go to bed. I had texted him several positive and caring messages while I was out, and I got no response. He encouraged me to make a post on Am I the Jerk because he insists that no good spouse would leave their sick husband to spend time with friends when the plan was to spend the night together, saying that I ditched him. I said he should have expressed to me that the time together was important to him and not been cold towards me, expecting me to abandon our previously made plans and sit at home again, then cover for his golf outing with friends for 9 hours the following day. Not the jerk, but your husband sure is for trying to turn the argument around on you. Why don't you point out how he ditched you for 9 hours of golfing with his friends even though he felt bad the night before? That sure was a fast stomach bug. Not the jerk. Not so sick he would cancel golf the next day, it seems. Throwing up is an odd one. Usually a stomach bug lasts more than one night. Even mild food poisoning would leave him too wobbly to go golf the next day. Did he drink too much? Not the jerk. So he wanted you to stay home and what? Watch him sleep? Is that his idea of quality time? New neighbor is demanding I cut down my peach tree. I, 46 male, have an apple tree in my backyard and a peach tree in my front yard. I'm currently living in my parents' house with my wife, who's 46. My mother and father planted them. They passed, and we decided to plant more. I only trim them when the branches get too big. They're mostly for the wildlife in the nearby woods. The deer love to come and eat the fruit. I don't spray them with any pesticides as they aren't for human consumption. I work during the week and don't get home until the evening. I haven't had any issues with the neighbors as the house is mostly in the countryside and surrounded by woods. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor moved into the house next door. I haven't had any interaction with them until now. I was not aware that the neighbor was coming over and grabbing fruit from my peach tree. I got home yesterday and the neighbor was standing on my porch. She comes storming over to my car and says the peaches made her and her son sick. I told her that the fruit was mostly for decoration and for the wildlife. She starts screaming at me and threatens to call the cops unless I take the trees down. I told her no, I'm not going to take the trees down. My wife suggested going out to the grocery store and buying her some peaches just to keep the peace. Not the jerk. Let her call the police, and if they show up, explain to them that she was stealing your organic stone fruit. Definitely don't buy her anything. That could be construed as liability. OP should contact the police to report the interaction regardless. This woman had the audacity to come onto your property and steal from you, then complain that they got sick from the fruit that they stole. Considering her angry reaction, she may try and cut the trees down herself. Keep your guard up, OP. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Tell her to go ahead and tell the cops. It would save you a call to report the trespasser entering your property and taking your fruit. What a loon. Do not buy her peaches to keep the peace. That's goofy. Tell her to stay off your property to keep the peace. Throw a bottle of Pepto at her kid to keep the peace too. Am I the jerk for feeding my dog table scraps from a dinner my boyfriend made for me? I, 24 female, have been dating Jay, 28 male, for 4 months. He's handsome, smart, funny, well-educated, has an awesome job, and he's a sweetheart. Sunday, he had a whole day planned for us. We were going to walk a nature trail and then go back to his place for dinner he was making. I was so excited because it was going to be the first time I'd be at his house. Since we were hiking, he said I could bring my dog, Shelby, with us. He made us a roast and some vegetables for dinner. I finished my plate before Jay did and took it to the kitchen. There was still about half the roast left, and it was close to Shelby's dinner time, so I took half of the roast and some still raw vegetables from the fridge to put on a plate for Shelby. I was carrying the plate to the back door with Shelby to feed her outside, and Jay asked me what I was doing. I told him I was feeding Shelby. Jay said something like, "Well, that's not dog food." Jay knows I mainly feed Shelby a raw diet. I opened the door to put the plate down for Shelby, and Jay got up, took the plate away from her, went to the kitchen, and came back with it wrapped up in tinfoil and told me to leave. His excuse was that he made dinner for me and him, not me, him, and my dog, and that I should have asked before I helped myself since he would have used his leftovers. I did leave, but not before telling him that he made that meal for us, so I could do with some of it as I pleased, and he knew darn well how I feed Shelby. I tried talking to my friend about it later that night, but she said Jay was right to be upset, but this friend has never really approved of how I treat my own dog, so I feel like she was probably a bit biased and the wrong person to ask. Am I the jerk for just feeding my dog like I normally would? Clarification: she does not get restaurant food daily. I eat out maybe 4 times a month. If what I eat is dog safe, or if the restaurant makes food for dogs on request, then I bring some home for her. Shelby's daily meals are a bit of brown rice, raw vegetables, and ground chicken hearts and beef livers. The hearts and livers are boiled just enough to kill bacteria, and that's all with the approval of Shelby's vet. I asked Jay how he prepared the roast so I could know if it was safe to give her. That's also why I got her fresh, unused vegetables from the fridge. Update: I accept that I'm the jerk for what I said and did to Jay. Some of these responses were harsh, but I see now how and why I was entitled, thanks to people that respond to the actual issue. Others going on about her diet, thanks for the concern, but I came here to ask about Jay, not get into a debate about dog food. Shelby's been on her diet for 6 years and is a healthy and active pup. That's all I and my vet need to know. As for Jay, I apologized to him, and he did accept my apology, but he broke it off. He said it was the last straw for him over me doing things without asking first. He's talked to me about taking things off his plate or his drink without asking before. I've tried to do better, but keep slipping up. I didn't realize I was that bad about it, so I'm going to work on myself for the next guy. For people that said not going to his place for 4 months was a red flag, that was my decision that he respected. I don't want to go to someone's house or let them know where I live within the first few months of dating and getting to know each other. Yes, you're the jerk. Your now ex-boyfriend made a special meal for you. You took a large hunk of that special meal and gave it to your dog. Not only that, but you did so knowing it would upset him. You should have brought dog food to feed Shelby. You should not have fed Shelby with people food, and you should particularly not have fed your dog with the special dinner your now ex-boyfriend had prepared for you. It is wholly irrelevant that Jay knows you mainly feed Shelby a raw diet. Edit. Also, the title of your post is misleading. Table scraps are what's left over on your plate after you finish eating. They are not a quarter of the roast your boyfriend prepared. You're the jerk. A quarter of a roast is not table scraps. How is the fact that you mainly feed your dog a raw diet at all relevant? Also, holy entitlement, Batman. Add, you made the dinner for me, so I can do with it as I please. By that logic, it would have been perfectly acceptable to flush it down the toilet. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex-boyfriend? Please let us know. Some people just have no social awareness whatsoever. My former crush married my brother and thought I'd be okay with it. I, 25 male, used to have the biggest crush on my childhood friend, Emily, who's 26 female. As a teen, I wasn't very assertive and a little awkward, so I never made a move and just hoped that one day Emily would realize that I was the guy for her. The only person who I openly admitted my crush, although it was kind of obvious, to was my brother, Liam, 28 male. He was much more assertive and confident than I was, and had had plenty of girlfriends, so I went to him for advice about Emily. Given the situation at the time, you can imagine my surprise when I caught Liam and Emily hooking up. I know that she technically was never my girlfriend, but it still sucked and I did feel betrayed. Turns out they hooked up at a party once and liked the encounter so much that they kept meeting up to do this when no one else was around. I felt completely sick and basically just distanced myself from Emily after that, which could be really awkward because we had a lot of classes together and we had the same shift at the part-time job we had, a job that Emily frequently depended on me to give her rides to. I just wanted to remove Emily from my life completely, but during the summer of our senior year, she and Liam sat me and my parents down and explained that Emily had gotten pregnant and they were planning on keeping the baby. My parents weren't happy, while I just got up and locked myself in my room. All I could think was, well, crap, now she's never going to go away. I purposefully transferred to an out-of-state college so I wouldn't be home as much, and lied about getting stuck in traffic when I missed Emily and Liam's wedding, and I showed no interest in my niece, Daisy, who's 8, although I still make the effort to be polite when I'm around them. Recently, Emily's father passed, and she's really going through it because despite him not being around, she always desired a relationship. When we were kids, I remember all those times I was a shoulder for Emily to cry on whenever she felt sad about her dad, and I guess she was longing for that type of comfort from me and kept reaching out. One day I relented and I let her vent, but I maintained a silent and formal demeanor on the matter. After spending about an hour crying, I offered Emily some water, and then she asked me why I was being so cold, how I know how much she needed a friend right now. I calmly yet firmly told her that we were just kids then, and that if she wants that level of emotional intimacy, then she needs to go to my brother, her husband, because I stopped being her comfort person a long time ago. Emily cried even more, left, and has managed to send Liam, my parents, Emily's mom, and from mutual friends to call me up and tell me I'm heartless and sad for being so spiteful. I can honestly say that I am now over Emily, but that doesn't mean I'm willing to be as close to her as I used to. So, am I the jerk? ETA. Had to step away, and after looking at the comments and DMs, I just wanted to be clear about some things. 1. Did I exhibit some nice guy traits as a teenager? Yes. As an adult, I now realize that Emily doesn't owe me a romantic relationship. 2. I was more angry at my brother than I was at Emily, because, he was my brother and he knew. 3. I don't see how me not taking an active role in the life of a kid that I didn't make is me punishing someone. I say hello and I give gifts on Christmas and holidays. 4. Again, Emily is married, so I find it odd that she would seek out someone who isn't her husband for emotional support. 5. Yes, I did give my condolences when I found out about Emily's father because it was the polite thing to do. Then she started trying to call me to talk about it. 6. Emily and I haven't had meaningful contact since high school, partly because she was busy getting ready to be a mom, and I was hurt and trying to get over her. 7. No, Liam and I aren't close anymore either. ETA 2. 1. Yes, I have a girlfriend, and from what I can tell, we're both very happy. 2. Yes, my girlfriend knows about my former crush on Emily. 3. Also, in spite of everything, I did learn to be more forthcoming with my feelings, which is why I told Emily that I can't be her comfort person. Although I will admit that there could have been a better way and better timing to communicate that. You had a crush in high school on a girl, but never asked her out. Somebody else did, and she married them. It's a decade later, and you still ignore her kid, who is literally your niece, because you're salty about it. Dude, this isn't healthy. Please get help. I have to put you're the jerk, but this is beyond am I the jerk. You've spent 9 years being so bitter. That's really sad for you. I don't think you're the jerk for telling Emily you can't be that person for her, but you're definitely the jerk for spending so much time being angry and obstinate. Don't spend the rest of your life like this. It will only bring more of the same. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.